Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what it looks like. Karina Cooper, Houston Baker, murdered Ryan Cooper, shooting in the face of her children right next door. Same house. We have a woman, Karina Cooper, who hated her husband. Hated him. Referred to him as a child, referred to him as a sperm donor, said, fucking hate him. Her friends, who she described as family, who were emotional on the stand. What did they say? We heard her threaten Ryan many times. I hate you. I wish you were dead. I should shoot you in the face. Ryan Cooper was shot twice in the face. Messages between Karina Cooper and her affair partner, Houston Baker, planning and plotting the crime. Not a fantasy, not a game, not a misunderstanding, not the product of data loss. They're exactly what they look like. A woman who hates her husband, who wants a new life, who wants a different life with Houston Baker. Plotting to kill her husband, whom she hates, by shooting him in the face. And that's exactly what happened. Oh, by the way, she had no money. Ryan made the financial decisions. She was unhappy with the fact that there were a lot of things she couldn't do. You saw the bank accounts. Some of them started in the negative. Hundreds, combined thousands of dollars in overdraft fees. Not only does she get to be with her affair partner, Houston Baker, she kills her husband. She also gets more than $600,000 in her, roughly $550,000 in insurance money. Another roughly, what did Michelle Wilson tell you? $100,000 from selling Ryan's stuff. Motive? It's exactly what it looks like. The messages mean exactly what you think they mean. She's guilty, and obviously guilty, of first-degree murder. The text messages or snaps in this case, they may be the smoking gun. They may be the most obvious evidence in this case. It's not the only evidence in this case, not by far. There's layer upon layer upon layer of evidence that indicates she's guilty of murdering her husband. We're going to go through that evidence. We're going to talk about it. We're going to go through the jury instructions that will guide you during your deliberations to make sure that you understand how the law applies to the facts. They look complicated. They've been read to you. There's a lot of words in there. There's a lot of legal jargon. It's not complicated. It's actually pretty straightforward. This case is an easy one. Tried and close. She's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The evidence shows that. Let's start with the now somewhat contested messages you've heard so much about. these messages possibly mean? She told her she sent them. Keep in mind, she told you a couple different things, right? Before we go through these. You can judge her credibility. It's your job to judge her credibility. She lied to the cops. She lied repeatedly to the cops. She lied over years to law enforcement. Now she wants to tell you, oh yeah, these incriminating snaps that look exactly like what they are, me plotting with Houston Bank to kill my husband, that's sort of a fantasy. Just kind of like an online, like when you play video games, right? That's what she said. When you play video games, when you steal cars, you shoot cops. That's what this is. Some sort of fantasy. But she's also terrified of Houston Banker. She also didn't take it seriously. And what did she say about these specific messages that we're about to look at? She told you, oh, I wasn't even really paying attention. I was only half paying attention to what they said. Okay. She's terrified. It's a fantasy. She also said Houston Banker is the one that sends the messages talking about murdering her husband. Okay? So it's a fantasy that she's participating in or she's not. Same goal. It's making sense. So what are these messages? Let's start with this one. 331, not reported to law enforcement the night the husband was killed. Heart emoji, 331. Not really paying attention. Think about data loss. Think about whether these conversations flow in a natural manner. Think about if there's anything possibly missing. There's not. Okay, here we are. Heart emoji. 2 seconds later from Houston. Seriously, more than fucking life. You can look at the defense exhibit. Those are in sequential order based on the message IDs. We'll get to the fact that the message IDs don't really relate to sequential order. Their expert couldn't tell you that. You don't need all that to make a determination of whether this is in sequential order in this sense. Heart emoji 2 seconds later, seriously more than fucking life. Karina says, forever. Not really paying attention to what Mac read them. Doesn't really know what they say. I don't know. Oh, whatever. Okay. Remember, she told law enforcement none of this. Said she was asleep. More than anything. Okay, babe, phone's going down. Send me something after I leave your house to then wait for me to open it. Deal? She's not paying attention. So she said, deal. 8 seconds later. Seems like she's paying attention. She's directly responding to what he said. There's no mystery here. She can try to talk around it as much as she wants. Insulting. It's ridiculous. Deal. Aiding and abetting. Deal. 3 seconds later. Kiss emoji, not paying attention though. Didn't really read what was going on. Houston, remember those casings. Fucking remember those. No ifs, ands, or buts. She seems to be tracking the conversation pretty well. She's responding to everything that he said. She doesn't say, what are you talking about? What casings? I don't know what a casing is. No, she doesn't say. She says, absolutely. 100%. 14 seconds later. Is what she's telling you credible at all? Wasn't paying attention. Don't really know what it means, what's going on. Seems to be tracking. Okay, phone's going down. I love you. I love you too, so much. Forever. Okay, babe, seriously, putting the phone down. Have to get this shit done. I love you. She doesn't say, what are you talking about? What does this mean? Because the plan to murder Ryan is already in place. All of the necessary conditions for this murder to happen are in place. Planned by Karina and Houston for months. This is the night it's going to go down. This is the night it's going to happen. She confirms, because she controls the scene, that everything that needs to be in place for this murder to happen is in place. You saw the searches. You know they did a ton of internet research. They thought they were going to commit the perfect crime. Putting the phone down. Why are we putting the phones down? Because they know a little bit about digital forensics. They know a little bit about location data. This is supposed to be some sort of convoluted alibi. Houston's at least smart enough to know, probably shouldn't take my phone with me when I go commit the murder. Because they're a little bit savvy. But the funny thing is, when you commit a murder, there's a lot of things you don't know. Investigators know them. Detectives know them. Forensic scientists know them. They didn't know. One of the things they didn't know were snap messages that you think you've deleted can be recovered. All the conditions are in place. Scene is controlled. Ryan's where he's supposed to be. Kids are subdued. Ransom is subdued. We'll get you in the door. You and I shoot Ryan. We get on with our lives. Go. He said, have to get this shit done. He said, what are you talking about? Consistent with their plan, she said, go. That is Ryan's death warrant. Signed by Karina. Then, yeah, just look up. Again, convoluted attempts at phone and data manipulation to throw off investigators. The same way that Karina, for years, sought to throw off the investigators. She can't tell anybody what happened to Ryan. Won't tell anybody what happened to Ryan. And whenever she opened her mouth to talk about it, provable lies, over and over again. She's guilty of murder in the first degree. How do we get there? What are the elements of murder in the first degree? On or about June 18th, 2021, Karina Cooper shot Ryan Cooper, or aided and abetted Houston Danker in shooting Ryan Cooper. The state has to and has proven that beyond reasonable doubt. Ryan Cooper died as a result of being shot. Karina Cooper individually, or Houston Danker, aided and abetted by Karina Cooper, acted with malice aforethought. We'll talk about what that means. It's been established. Karina Cooper individually, or Houston Danker, aided and abetted by Karina Cooper, acted willfully, deliberately, premeditatedly, and with specific intent to kill Ryan Cooper. Yes, that happened. It's been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. You're being presented with what's called alternative theories. Karina Cooper shot Ryan Cooper, one theory, or aided and abetted Houston banker in shooting Ryan Cooper. That's another theory. Alternate theories. What does that mean? It's not complicated. If you find that she aided and abetted Houston banker in shooting her husband, she's guilty of first-degree murder. If you find that she shot Ryan Cooper herself, she's guilty of first-degree murder. Either one. Either or. This is about a unanimous verdict. What this says is, where two or more facts would produce the same result, the law does not require each juror to agree as to which theory or fact leads to his or her verdict. It's the verdict itself which must be unanimous, not the theory upon which it's based. May be confusing. What does that mean? Simple and straightforward. It means some of you may think she aided and abetted Houston banker. The remainder of you may think that she herself shot Ryan Cooper. That's guilty. Because all of you think she committed first-degree murder. It doesn't matter how. Some of you may think it's aiding and abetting. Some of you may think she pulled the trigger. That's okay. You don't all have to agree she pulled the trigger. You don't all have to agree that she aided and abetted. Either or. And she's guilty of first-degree murder. What does aid and abet mean? So we have, she pulled the trigger herself. Or she aided and abetted. What is that? Knowingly approve and agree to the commission of a crime. By active participation, there was active participation. Or by knowingly advising or encouraging the act in some way before or when it's committed. Go. Certainly not all she did. Again, we'll go through her control of the scene and the conditions that had to be in place for Houston banker to come over and participate with Karina Cooper in murdering Ryan Cooper. But she's certainly guilty of aiding and abetting. There's a mountain of evidence that establishes that. Now, there's some additional instruction under aid and abet that may seem confusing. Murder in the first degree requires a specific intent. In order to find that she aided and abetted Houston banker, you must find either that she, Karina Cooper, had that specific intent, or Houston banker did and she knew that he did. We'll talk a little more about specific intent. It's pretty clear they both want Ryan Cooper dead. It's pretty clear she knows it. She told us she knows it. In her version of events, she's been hearing from Houston all the time about shell casings and how he wants to kill Ryan. So does she. It's pretty clear from those snap messages they have a specific intent. 2 shots to the face. That's specific intent. There's more. There's no question that she had the specific intent. There's no question that she knew Houston had specific intent. So it's not an issue with regard to aiding and abetting. It's already been established. It also says this: mere nearness to or presence at the scene of a crime without more evidence is not aiding and abetting. There's plenty more evidence. Those snap messages alone are plenty more evidence. She didn't just happen to be there. This just means that she had to actively participate in the commission of the crime itself. Not even necessarily that night. She did. She did participate that night. Just means there has to be more evidence than the fact that she just happened to be there. We know she didn't just happen to be there. Similarly, mere knowledge of the crime is not enough to prove aiding and abetting. In other words, just because she knows about it, one way or another, that's not enough for aiding and abetting. We have far more than that. Again, active participation. Already established beyond a reasonable doubt. So, we go through the elements one at a time, talk about some of the evidence that establishes guilt beyond a reasonable doubt for each of those elements. Here are the elements again. Let's start with number 2. This one's easy. Ryan Cooper died as a result of being shot. Medical examiner, Dr. Kelly Cruz. What did she tell you? Cause of death, gunshots to the face. Wound A, fatal. Wound B, fatal. Ryan Cooper died as a result of being shot. Proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Her testimony, the autopsy, that's established. Moving on to number 3. Karina Cooper individually, or Houston Danker, aided and abetted by Karina Cooper, acted with malice aforethought. What is malice? Malice is a state of mind which leads one to intentionally do a wrongful act to the injury of another out of actual hatred or with an evil or unlawful purpose. This is distinguished from an act done in the heat of passion. How may it be established? By evidence of actual hatred or proof of a deliberate or fixed intent to do injury. It may be found from the acts and conduct of the defendant and the means used in doing the wrongful or injurious act, in this case, firearm. So were these acts born of actual hatred? Yeah. Malice also requires such deliberation that would make a person appreciate and understand the nature of the act and its consequences. Again, as distinguished from an act done in the heat of passion. Malice aforethought does not have to exist for any particular length of time. Malice and malice aforethought may be inferred from the use of a dangerous weapon. Everything that we just read, everything that it said, you can infer by the fact that a dangerous weapon was used. And you received an instruction. A .22 rifle, by law, is a dangerous weapon. That's the weapon that killed Ryan Cooper. So malice and malice aforethought are already established by the fact they shot him in the face with a .22 rifle. You don't have to think about anything else with regard to malice and malice aforethought. It's already established. When you shoot someone in the face with a .22 rifle, malice aforethought can be inferred. There's more evidence of malice in this case. We talked about this just briefly. Teresa McBride. Karina told you she's family. She didn't describe her as a friend, she described her as family. Malice. Actual hatred. Said she hated Ryan multiple times. Said she wished he was dead. That's malice. Heard Karina say she would shoot him in the face. Malice, aforethought. This is well before the murder. Brian Morrison, same, family. You saw him on the stand. You judge people's credibility. He was very emotional. You lost his friend, Brian. He also loved Karina. He also knew exactly what she said. She would shoot him in the face. Everything's a fantasy with Karina. funny joke. It's a misunderstanding. It's a joke. Thought I'd shoot him in the face. It's a joke. They didn't think it was a joke. They said it was time to go. And they left. That's her family. They left because it wasn't a joke. If it was a joke, they would have laughed. The snaps are a joke. Saying I hate him, shoot him in the face, that's a joke. Conversations with law enforcement, joke. Tell them whatever you want. The testimony, joke. Additional evidence of malice. Karina's own words. Fucking hate him. What do we think that means? It means she hates him. This is to Houston. This is in February. She's mortified, right? She's so scared of him. She doesn't want to have anything to do with him. Doesn't want anything to happen to her family. So these are the messages you send back and forth. Gee, I hate my husband. I wish you were my husband. You should be a father of my kids. Not my sperm donor. Not this child. It's terrible. What else did she say? Like I said, sperm donor. She hates him. She resents him. She wants him dead. She wants Houston Danker to father and parent her children. She says that. Here's hoping for a rogue semi today. Big accident, no survivors. Who drives a semi? Her husband, Brian. I broke it off with Houston. We had sex once, but I shut it down. Didn't want anything to happen to my family. And then I text him, you should father my kids. I hope Brian dies in a semi-accident. Malice aforethought. You can infer it from the use of the weapon. There's plenty of other methods. Number 4, Karina Cooper individually or Houston Danker aided and abetted by Karina Cooper who acted willfully, deliberately, premeditatedly, and with the specific intent to kill Ryan Cooper. Again, that seems like a lot. Again, it's actually pretty straightforward. Willfully, fixed design or purpose. Pretty clear what their design or purpose was. Certainly pretty clear what your design or purpose is when you shoot someone in the face twice. Deliberate. Having deliberated, which is to weigh in one's mind, to consider, to contemplate, or to reflect. She's talking about hoping he's dead months before they kill him. That deliberation doesn't have to exist for any period of time. It could be while you're sighting your husband who's sitting in a recliner with a rifle. It could be when you're loading the ammunition. It could be when you're pulling the trigger. It could be in between the first and second shot. Here we have months. Not even close. Premeditate. Think or ponder upon a matter before acting. Same. What is specific intent? Not only being aware of doing an act and doing it voluntarily, but in addition, doing it with a specific purpose in mind. What's the act? Shooting Ryan Cooper in the face. Specific purpose, to kill him. This is not complicated. You may, but are not required to conclude a person intends the natural results of his acts. What's the natural result of shooting somebody twice in the head? That you're going to kill them. Again, if a person has the opportunity to deliberate, as we just established, they both did, and uses a dangerous weapon, that's a 22, against another resulting in death, You may, you're not required to, infer that the weapon was used with all of these: malice, premeditation, and specific intent to kill. The use of the .22 rifle alone establishes all of these things. There's plenty of evidence, and you've heard it repeatedly over the last week, for all of these: premeditation, specific intent, malice. As long as you find there was time to deliberate and deliberation occurred, you don't even weigh any of that evidence for this element. You just look at the fact that the .22 rifle was used. As I said before, .22 rifle is by law a dangerous weapon. Specific intent to kill. It's already established by the use of the weapon, but let's talk about other evidence of specific intent to kill. She and Houston shot her. We know she was up, she was around that house for an extended period of time. We'll go through the timeline, not the timeline she provided, but the timeline established by clinical forensics. What did she do? She's awake. She told you. She told you both, right? If you think about her testimony on the stand, what did she say yesterday? She woke up because she heard a crash. Sticking to that story. But she also admitted to sending all the snaps. Okay? So apparently she was both awake and asleep and awakened by a loud crash. She was awake. She participated in the murder. That's what really happened. Then she staged the scene, taking care of some other things that needed to be taken care of, which we'll talk about later. All the while, Ryan's bleeding out. He's dying. His blood is drying. His blood is clotting. Two separate things. She finally gets around to calling 911 when she's getting ready. Has the scene set the way that she would like it to be set up. She calls in. Fake hysterics. Ridiculous, dramatic, overacting. She calls in. Volunteer firefighter. And she says, I think somebody's in my house. Not a word about Ryan. Not call an ambulance. Not call 911. Not get help. Not you come over here. He needs some aid. I think someone's in my house. Okay. I think someone's in your house. You're running around in the house. You're unarmed. Apparently you think someone's in the house. She's buying time, making it look like she's doing what a reasonable person would do if they found their husband shot. I called for help. Did you know? Did you really? Or did you fake call for help? Someone's in my house. What's going on? Screaming. Can we get any details? Screaming. Okay. Never mentioned anything about Ryan when calling Aaron. Something to think about. For a news story, Houston Baker did it. And I was so scared I didn't tell anybody. What does this have to do with Houston Baker? How does this help Houston Baker? If Houston Baker murdered her husband or shot her husband, she didn't want to tell that Houston Baker did it. because she's afraid she'll get in trouble, how does that prevent her from calling 911 immediately and telling them what happened? You can say, I don't know who did it, but you can also say, we need some help right away. How does providing misleading information about the timeline come forward with the first story that Houston Baker did? Are these all cover stories that help her because she participated in the murder? That's exactly what it is. If you're concerned that Houston Baker did it, you had nothing to do with it, and you don't want them to be upset with you, you would just help as much as you can and say, I don't know anything about who did it. She did it. She told a series of lies that helped her because she's participating in the murder. Never asked Aaron to call 911 or an ambulance. Never told Aaron that Ryan needed aid. She never attempted to render any aid herself. Like any normal, reasonable person, she did nothing. Until eventually she sat on it. We'll talk about that more later. She sat on it. She rubbed her face all over the blood to conceal evidence, to conceal her role in the murder. Two shots to the face, specific intent to kill. Opportunity to liberate. These are the messages from before the murder. Opportunity to deliberate. We have plenty of other messages where she wants him dead. But here we are at 3:30. She makes her faint cry for help at 4:30. Here's an hour before. Okay, come over to murder your husband. Don't forget to pick up the shell casings. Absolutely 100%. Opportunity to deliberate. Yep. Phone manipulation, phone's going down. I love you so much. Forever. Okay, gotta get this shit done. Go. This has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. There's more evidence that supports it. You've heard it. It's probably in your notes. I'm not going to go through all of it. This is by far more than enough to establish beyond a reasonable doubt. Houston Baker, aided and abetted by Karina, or Karina herself, acted willfully, deliberately, premeditatedly, and with specific intent. And again, remember, do you find deliberation? The use of the .22 rifle is enough for you to find reasonable doubt has been established beyond a reasonable doubt for element number 4. 3 of the 4 elements are already met. The final element. On or about June 18th, 2021. That's not in question. All the first responders, everybody talked about, and everyone else. This occurred on June 18th, 2021. Karina agrees. Karina Cooper shot Ryan Cooper, or aided and abetted Houston Baker in shooting Ryan Cooper. Did she? She did. Ryan's murder absolutely could not have happened without Karina's aid. By her own account. Which, by the way, is ridiculous. Let's talk about the things that she had to do to make this murder happen. Here's the plan. Karina decides with Houston, ultimately, that they're going to shoot Ryan in his house while he's asleep. The kids have to be there. Why? Well, if that's your plan, it would look really suspicious if the night that your husband is murdered just happens to be the night that the kids are at Grant's. So she had to make a decision. And she did. But this murder happened while her kids were present. He would just look too suspicious if they weren't. She tells you, I would never orchestrate a murder with my kids there. Watch Officer Thing's body camera. She's just gotten through concealing evidence by rubbing her face all over Ryan's dead body. Her children are in the room. She's pretending to be upset. Different people respond differently to trauma. We know that. Look at everyone else at this, including the children. Pretty calm. Their dad's lying dead. Blood everywhere. Their mom is screaming hysterically. Look at the kids. Were they able to talk and communicate with law enforcement? Yeah. Aaron came in, finds his brother dead. Blood everywhere. Was he able to communicate? Yeah. Karina cares about her kids. She told you that. She would never orchestrate a murder with the kids there. Well, she had to. Be pretty suspicious otherwise. She's so caught up in trying to convince law enforcement that she's devastated by the death of her husband that she knows nothing about, that her children are standing right there in the room. And she walks right past them out of the room. Doesn't look at them. Doesn't comfort them. Doesn't care. Because she's got a job to do at this point. She just murdered her husband. And she has to convince everyone. She's devastated. She can't even breathe. She can't talk. It's spoken. She did orchestrate a murder with her kids there. She had to. It's too suspicious otherwise. So, what did she have to do? What was part of her job in this case? How's she going to get this murder done? Problem number one. Kate sleeps next to Ryan who we want to shoot in the face. Got to get him out of there. You heard Kate's testimony. He had been sleeping next to Ryan for a year. For a year. She told him, you got to sleep in your own room. She tries to pass it off. Oh, it's part of our deal. We had a deal, we're going to redecorate the rooms, and we're going to redecorate the rooms, and then they got to go sleep with her. Wanted to get the kids in their rooms before school started. It's June. Early June. That's her phone cover story. This is evidence of deliberation and premeditation. They've been planning this murder for a long time. Long enough for her to come up with this phony excuse of painting the rooms. You can see that she's working on the house. You can see she's been painting. That's evidence. That's evidence of premeditation. She's hoping that her husband will be dead months before this. Problem number one. Kids are going to be home. Let's get Cade up to his room. He can't be there when Ryan's shot in the face. Mission accomplished. She had to assure Cortland and Cable were asleep and accounted for. Two other kids who can't see what's going on. They didn't have to sleep in their own rooms that night. They were with her, where she could keep an eye on them. What else had to be in place for this murder to happen? She had to assure Ryan was asleep. That's a big one. That's why we're texting at 3:30 in the morning, let's do this. That's why it didn't happen at 6 p.m. or 6 a.m. or midnight. Who knows his sleep schedule? Karina does. That's a crucial part of this murder. She knows. What did she tell you in the interviews on the stand? He's like his dad. He's up roaming in the night. That's why she says, go. Everything's in place. Ryan's asleep for the night. She knows his sleep schedule. It's not a normal one. Falls asleep around 8. Sleeps for a little while. Gets up. Watches TV. Eventually falls back to sleep. He's up roaming in the night. Kate's in his room. Kids are with her in the bedroom. She's confirmed Ryan's asleep. Go. He's asleep for the night. There's also a gun in the house. This is her boyfriend. She refers to him essentially as a husband. Says Houston Danker is her husband. She's his wife. She's worried about it. There's guns in the house. You heard, she doesn't know anything about guns. But everywhere she goes, there's guns. She had to get a weapons permit because every car I get in, there's a gun. She told police she doesn't know anything about guns. But she knows there's a gun in the house. If there's a confrontation, if Ryan's awake, Houston could get shot. She can't have that. She has to make sure there won't be a confrontation. She has to make sure that Ryan's asleep. Security. Think Houston Danker could do this by himself? Think he chanced it just right? That he happened to come over, he happened to pick the right door, door just happened to be unlocked, happened to be able to get in through the house at a time when Kate wasn't up, just happened to not be sleeping next to his dad. You've only been 2 days, that doesn't mean anything. The other kids just happened to not be awake. Ryan just happened to be asleep for the night. Security. These are security-conscious people. You saw the crime scene photographs. Locks on all the doors. Karina told you multiple times. The door behind Ryan, locked. 99.9% sure. Locked. Kitchen door just happened to be open. She had to make sure he could get in. And then he could get in to a situation that was controlled. Ransom. 130-pound Rottweiler. What she stated to Ryan Herman. Very protective. Barks at everything. Would be raising hell if he heard anything. She has to subdue Ransom. You saw Feynman's body camera. When that dog is around Karina, he's subdued. He's calm. She told you. She told Agent Herman. Dog would raise hell, hurt anything. So now we have Houston Danker somehow getting in, coming into the house. What else did she tell you about Ransom? She left the door open because Ransom wanders the house. This very protective 130-pound Rottweiler wanders the house. They'll go upstairs to see Kate. They'll go hang out by Ryan. The target of this assassination plot, wandering the house. She has to make sure that Ransom is subdued, and she does that. Ransom is in the bedroom with her. Not going to be a problem for Houston. As I said, she has to assure that Ryan is sound asleep for the night. She did. She told you her own testimony at 3:30 in the morning. She was fully aware at 3:30 in the morning that Kate was upstairs and that Ryan was asleep. When did those Snapchat messages start? Around 3:30. Go. She told me. Tells him go and sets the plan in motion. What else did she do? She helped him escape. Because he can't be seen by the children, so she has to immediately subdue them. You know who can be at the scene? She can. Those kids are going to wake up. They're going to hear something. That's a concern. If they see Mom, that's okay. Can't see Houston. Kate already knows who Houston is. She broke it off. She'll never want to be with him, you know. It's sort of an online thing. What Kate's saying. Then he comes over and hangs out, drinks with my mom. When Dad's not around. Okay. So, she has to help him escape. How does she do that? As soon as the shooting happens, we'll talk about this more, Houston's right out that door behind Ryan. He didn't come in it. Definitely went out. Karina runs to make sure that no kids are coming into the room, whether at the base of the stairs, which go to Kate's room, or in that same room that has the doorway to the bedroom where Portland and Kate are. It's pretty obvious how she bought time. We'll talk about that more. But if they didn't hear anything, or they didn't get up, she has even more time to work the scene before she fake calls for help. But the bottom line is, when she's planning this crime with Houston, they know he has to get out of there immediately, and she has to make sure the kids don't see it. Easy. She's done all those things. Made sure Houston could get in. Made sure Ransom wasn't a problem. Made sure the kids weren't a problem. Made sure Kate was in his own room. Made sure Houston could escape. Let's think about this. How do we know they're working together? Houston Danker did not come armed for a confrontation. You heard the testimony. He owns an AR-15. That's an assault rifle. Large caliber. If Houston Danker did this alone, let's think this through. He's going to come over to this house that we just talked about, has multiple security threats. We have dogs. We have kids. We have locks. We don't know if Ryan's awake or asleep. He's going over there to murder someone. By himself. And from his arsenal of weapons, which includes a double-barrel shotgun and an AR-15, he chooses a squirrel rifle. A small caliber .22. Does that make any sense at all? Yeah, it does. If you know there won't be a confrontation. Because Karina's told you there won't be a confrontation. Because she knew at 3:30 that Ryan was asleep. She knew all the conditions were in place. She knew he wasn't going to have any problem. She knew Ryan wasn't going to be confined. She knew Ryan wouldn't have his gun. She knew all we're going to need is that .22. The .22, but as you heard the testimony of some of her friends, a .22 is a weapon that she likes to shoot. She shoots so much more easily. Doesn't have as much kickback as her weapon, that she knows nothing about. He knew there wouldn't be a confrontation because he's working in concert with Karina. You don't choose a .22 to go to someone's house and murder them. unless you know there won't be a confrontation. When it was clear there wasn't going to be a confrontation, she said, "Go." And he came over with his 22. So, let's talk about the floor plan. We know Karina wishes she had a larger bathroom. She told us that yesterday, so yeah, the bathroom's a little out of proportion. We've established, and you've heard, that this garage door just goes to the garage. Can't get in the house that way, right? This is the door behind Ryan. You're rolling up on the house. You're a Houston banker. You got your 22 because you're ready for this confrontation that's going to occur. What are your options? Kitchen door, where everyone goes in. Door behind Ryan Cooper. Let's start with the door behind Ryan Cooper. Got your 22. He's asleep in the chair. You saw the pictures. You heard the testimony. You heard from Karina as well. That door, one, always locked. So what happens if you first try the door? You got your gun, you try the door, it doesn't open. Well, you probably just alerted the person that you're going to murder. It's probably not going to go in the door for that reason. Let's say it happens to be open. You've heard testimony that it was locked. You got your rifle, you come in, the door is going to hit the back of the chair. We already heard that. So you'd have to come in, possibly hit the back of the chair, possibly alerting the person that you're going to murder. Another reason not to use that entrance. Then, you would have to gingerly step around them with your rifle, come around and shoot them in the face, hopefully not waking them up as you shuffle by. Again, ignoring all the other objective realities that we know about dogs, kids, and everything else. Okay, that makes no sense. Doesn't make any sense at all. If you wanted to kill Ryan by himself, you could have just shot him through the window with his AR-15. Done. But he didn't want to kill Ryan by himself. He wanted to kill Ryan with Karina Cooper. That's what they did. So, that leaves one option. The mudroom. That's the door you had to come in. So we entered the door, behind Ryan, through the mudroom and through the kitchen. So what does that mean? She calls it the sewing room. It's labeled here as a hallway. He's going to have to, with his 22 rifle, walk past the stairs that lead to Kate's bedroom. Seems risky. The bedroom door that's open, that has Karina, 130-pound Rottweiler, ransom, 2 young children. So he would have had to walk past this hallway, past these doors. We know, Karina says, I heard a crash, I got up, I thought it was in the bathroom, so I went to the kitchen. She also says she was awake sending snaps. So, in one of her versions of events, Houston must have come in the house with his 22, happened to pick the right door, came in the kitchen, walked right past Ransom, walked right past Karina, who was both awake and asleep, walked right past the kids, didn't wake up Kate, Brian just happened to be asleep, got himself in there, and shot him in the face. That makes no sense. It's ridiculous. It's insulting. It's not. She controlled the scene. She controlled all those threats. That's why they chose the 22. She likes to shoot the 22. None of that happened. He came in that door all right, with Karina's help. He walked down that hallway because Karina knew the kids were asleep, and Kate was asleep, and Ryan was asleep. Ransom had been subdued. Talked about this a little bit. Other ways that we know Karina was involved. If she says that this was Houston, it wasn't her, and her new story, which years later, this is what she's come up with, I was scared. So I can say, why are you telling the police stories that only help yourself? Why are you telling the police stories that have to do with your guilt? She's not guilty of anything. Why is she trying to throw him off the trail as it relates to her? There's one answer. Because she murdered her husband. She told Deputy Foster she's never shot a gun before. What does that have to do with Houston Bank? It has to do with her. She doesn't want them to think that she knows how to shoot a gun. She doesn't want them to think that maybe she did it, because she did. Never shot a gun before. She told Deputy Foster she's never even heard a gunshot. Maybe on TV. She has a weapons permit. She has preferences for the types of weapons that she likes to shoot. The concealed carry class was held on the property. You heard that she fired a weapon. Why is she telling me this? Because she's trying to throw them off from the trail that leads directly back to her. This has nothing to do with her story that I didn't tell her anything because I was scared it was too big. You would just say, I don't know what happened. She's worried about getting caught. You'll notice, if you watch Fangin and Foster's body cams again, she can't provide any information. Anytime they ask for information, she just starts wailing and screaming. Ask Foster and Fangin both. Plenty of experience. At scenes involving trauma, severe injury. Ever seen anything like that? I've not. Why do you say that? Never seen someone who couldn't provide any information for long. And the problem is, whenever she talked, the information that she provided were things that would help her. Somehow she was able to say those things. How much did she say about Ryan, what happened to Ryan? Almost nothing. There was a stream of words and phrases related to guns. My stupid gun that I've never even shot, that I don't know anything about, that I couldn't get out of the safe, and I don't even know how to use it, and I'm scared of it. That's a lot of information. Thank you. Can you tell us anything about Ryan? No. Karina. Deputy Foster over here. Karina. We're trying to figure out what happened. Screaming. Karina, we're trying to figure out what happened. I want my kids. Did it sound like a gunshot? That one I can answer. Never even heard a gunshot before. Maybe on TV. The only stuff she wants to talk about is stuff she thinks is going to help her, because she's guilty. She's afraid of her own 380. She's never shot it. She couldn't get the gun safe open. Why did she say this? Because she knows, one, law enforcement's probably going to find it. Two, people know she has a 380. They're going to wonder, why didn't you help? There's an intruder. She didn't get her 380 because she participated in the murder. Could she tell Foster? I tried to get it open, but I couldn't get it open. What did Foster tell you? I went and I opened it. Do you have a code or a combination? Have you ever seen that safe before? No. She thinks she's helping herself. The stories she's telling make no sense. They're designed only to help her. It has nothing to do with Houston. Because she participated in the murder. You don't need to say any of that stuff. If her version of events is true, if her version of events that Houston did it and she's scared, why all this? Because that's not what happened. She participated in the murder. Doesn't know anything about guns. And then she tells you, I know this looks suspicious, but I was taking a hunting safety course. Doesn't know anything about guns, but Hunter safety course. 80-some screenshots, so she cheat on the tests, right? That's what she said. What's in that? Doesn't know what shell casing is, had to call Erin when she saw the article in the newspaper. They said they found a shell casing, you know what that? I don't know what shell casing is. This is what's on her phone. If you're trying to say Houston Danker did this, you didn't know anything about it. Why are you placing a phone call to Erin, whom you've never talked to about what happened the night of his brother's death? Why are you placing a phone call to Erin to pretend you don't know what a shell casing is? That's about her and her guilt. That's why she did that. She knows what shell casing is. She's taking tests on her phone. She knows what round nose lead is, good penetration, little expansion. She knows what a full metal jacket is. She knows here about projectile range and how it can help you determine whether or not you can make a clean kill. Doesn't know anything about them, so. And when she testifies, yeah, that looks bad. I got a new story. New story is, well, I was taking this hunter course, and, okay, yeah. All right, when you commit a murder, there are many things that you do not know. Many things you don't know. Karina and Houston thought they were smarter. Karina and Houston thought they did their research. They thought that they planned the perfect crime. There's no such thing. And they made many, many mistakes. We'll get to many of them, but let's start with her own version of events. Let's start with this. In the chaos of murdering her husband and pretending she had no idea what was going on, she told 911 that her husband was shot. It's on the 911 call. Interview with DCI agent Rick Ron and Ryan Herman. They told her repeatedly, we're just trying to figure out what happened to Ryan. Could be medical. We don't know. We're not sure what's going on. She just sat. Didn't say anything. Didn't say a word. I don't know. I don't either. She forgot that she told 911 that her husband was shot. She tells them the same thing in the second interview, and she talks about how she was trying to figure out where the blood was coming from or what happened. So it's not just that Rick Ron and Ryan Herman said, we're trying to figure out what's going on, and she said nothing. She also affirmatively said, I was just trying to figure out where the blood was coming from. No idea. She forgot that she told 911 that her husband had been shot. Okay. She told Deputy Foster on the body cam, the dog was barking. Well, fast forward a few hours later when she's talking to Ryan Herman, Ransom never barked. She can't figure it out because no, I didn't bark. During the second interview, they talked more about Ransom, and she said, yeah, he just sort of made a noise, just sort of like let the air out of his lungs. Ryan Herman said, let the air? Yeah, just a soft. The dog was barking, she screamed while she was on the ground in fake hysterics, unable to tell officers anything about what happened to Ryan. This doesn't have anything to do with Houston Danker. Let's do with Karina Cooper. Her timeline. It's not even really worth going through, frankly. It's ridiculous. She gave you two timelines at the same time yesterday. It's clearly phony. We have the Snapchat conversations at 3:31. Never reported that to the police, right? Claimed she was asleep. She's doing stuff on her phone. She takes 170 steps that she never told anybody about, approaching multiple football fields. Then she called Aaron Cooper eventually when she got around to it, and then we see when the deputies arrive. Her version of events, initially, it seems like we have two versions of events at this point. One of them was, well, yeah, no, I was asleep. I got up and I heard a sound, went to the kitchen. Well, first she looked in at Ryan, she didn't see him. So then she heard a sound, she thought it was in her bathroom, so she goes to the kitchen and looks out the window. Okay. Then she goes in, she's pissed at Ryan, steps in, and she finds that he's dead. So seconds, maybe 30 seconds. Agent Villada asked, hey, when you heard that sound, how long did you stay in bed? She said 5 to 10 seconds. So we have the sound, right? She gets up, does the things we just discussed, roughly 30 seconds. She tells you, Ryan's blood, it's like chunks, body. Okay? We heard from Ken Martin, did that happen in 30 seconds? No, no way. There's things you don't know when you commit a murder. She doesn't know how blood works. She doesn't understand blood evidence. Her steps. Didn't occur to her when she's carrying her phone around, it's going to be recording those steps. Those steps started at 4:23. 7 minutes before the call came. Things you don't know. Her house is tiny. 45 feet by 45 feet roughly. Very small space. You got furniture in there as well. She testified that she went back and forth between the kitchen and the living room a couple times to get Kate and get him in the room, lock herself in there. That doesn't account for steps starting at 4:23 of almost 400 feet. She didn't know investigators were going to find any of this stuff. So she thinks, when she sits down and talks to Agent Truman, that her story might hold up. She just keeps going and going. Many, many steps starting at 4:23. Because she staged the scene. Talked about the blood clots and the dried blood. Biggest mistake probably, data forensics. The snaps were recovered, the other information from her phone. Even without all that stuff, her story about Houston Baker coming over with a 22 and making his way through the house makes no sense. She aided and abetted Houston in doing this. Or she did it herself. The evidence establishes that beyond a reasonable doubt. You will see that you have some lesser included offenses in the packet. The judge talked about them. Second-degree murder and others. This is not a second-degree murder. If you find her guilty of first-degree murder, which has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, you do not need to consider the lesser included offenses. You are done. That is only if you believe she did not commit first-degree murder. The evidence establishes beyond a reasonable doubt that she did. Motive. We just went through the elements. All of them have been established. You might have noticed motive is not on there. The state does not have to establish motive. It does not need to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. You can consider it. We already talked about the fact that she had a financial motive. Here's her account for the month that her husband was killed. $186. Here's her business account, minus $297. Here's the insurance check she got, $514,000. There was another one that she saw for $24,000. Sold roughly another $100,000 worth of stuff. That's a motive. Here's a motive. She's in love with Houston Baker. She wants to have his kids. Start a new life with him. You might hear from defense, hey, it doesn't make any sense that she would kill Ryan because Ryan was the primary breadwinner. Yeah, that was supposed to be Houston Baker once Ryan was dead, with a nice head start of $600,000. Karina's news story. We already talked about this. States she was only half paying attention and didn't really read them. We already talked about that. That's absurd. These messages make perfect sense in order. There's no mystery as to what they say. There's no mystery as to what they mean. They mean exactly what you think they mean. Claims Houston threatened her. Keep in mind, there's no evidence to support this claim. Data forensics. Look at the phones. Defense has this information too. Miss Watt pulled it up for you and was going through it with Tiffany Lord. No threats. Defense doesn't have a burden, but they can present you with those threats. Karina knows how to take screenshots on her phone. Any screenshots of any threats from Houston? No. What's the only evidence that these threats ever happened? Karina's word. And she sat there on the stand and told you that she lied and lied and lied for years. And she also told you things that weren't true. 2 timelines at the same time. You are the judges of credibility. No evidence of these threats but her word. Her reaction to the threats doesn't make any sense at all. Well, he was making threatening statements about Ryan, so she calls herself his wife, insults her husband, talks about her husband dying, wants him dead. This is another one she testified to. She had hair appointments on the morning of June 18th, the morning that Ryan was killed. She couldn't have killed him, she had regular hair appointments. It's ridiculous. Go to sleep. First of all, the messages are in sequential order. You can read them. Would it make any sense after what was just said? Absolutely 100% deal. We're going to murder my husband. We know why she said go. Scene staged, the scene was set, no confrontation was going to happen. She now says, oh no, there were some follow-up messages. Much like the threats, there's no evidence of them. And I said, go to sleep. Makes no sense in the flow of the conversation. It doesn't matter what you think about the data forensics. Tiffany Lord told you it's not possible. Defense brought in an expert who says, well, I didn't test anything and I don't know how the mechanism works, but there's a column of numbers and they're not sequential. Mr. Kodiaga said, could that just be related to the time between when the messages are sent versus each message getting an individual number? Maybe, I don't really know. Tiffany Lord told you it's not possible. It has nothing to do with that column of numbers. That column of numbers does not indicate missing messages. That's not at all what that means. There's been no testimony that that's what that means. The expert that they brought in said, I don't know, I haven't tested anything, and I don't know how the mechanism works. Tiffany Lord is aware of that column of numbers because Ms. Watt asked her about it. It's not like this is a mystery to her. She said it's some proprietary information, I don't know exactly how it works. Nonetheless, it's not possible, based on the information that she has, for there to be additional messages. Regardless, common sense and reason. Read the snaps. Look at what happened. Makes no sense. She didn't say go to sleep. She said go. What are the chances that somehow all the information that's exculpatory, the threats and the additional messages that show up, it was just, I didn't do it. That just somehow that wasn't happening. That's what Karina wants you to believe. It's like she wants you to believe all the different stories she's told. Makes no sense. She's guilty of murder in the first degree. The state's proven it beyond a reasonable doubt. At the close of evidence, we're asking that you find her guilty. Thank you.